Hello, everyone. You're here with Martin Whelan and Adam Young, and we're here because Martin has written an amazing book called Resurrect and Reclaim the True You. And my take on that is I've been achieving everything I've wanted to achieve all my life, and on the surface, I'm a normal guy. I've got most things that you would want in life, but there was a massive black hole in me, and I didn't feel content. And it wasn't until I met Martin that he really made me think, what am I missing? Why don't I really feel like Adam Young, the person that I visioned of being when I was a young child? So on the surface, even though I was achieving everything and the person that I thought I'd be, I didn't feel the physical reward, the feel good attached to that. And this show is really about Martin's book and how he's helped me and others resurrect and reclaim the true you.
I mean, it's quite amazing when we actually start looking at various things, because when I originally came up with the title of the book, it was called Reclaim the True You. And so, and reclaim actually stands for 7 mnemonics, which is very much in the spiritual thing of the number 7. And the R is for realizations, and realization of, basically where we are. E is for the experiences that we've all had in our lives, and those experiences actually start to define and describe why we all see the world in a very different way. But once we've looked at the realizations of where we are, and then the experiences that we've had to this point, we then get to a point of choice. And that choice is, what do we do about it? How do we go? How do we move forward? If we do decide to move forward, then the L stands for limiting beliefs. What holds us back? What stops us actually achieving something? The A is then the key thing, really, especially in the early stages, which is action. We have to take action on those limiting beliefs to actually help move them out of the way. Then we have to review, and the I is for, we look at the impacts of those actions that we've taken. Sometimes they'll be exactly the right things to actually take. Sometimes they won't be. But we will have an outcome, and that outcome will actually give us a result, and then we can actually reorganize ourselves accordingly. And the last stage of it is the mastery of self. Now, I'm not actually saying here that is the last stage of of our lives. What it means is that we've actually got back to ourselves, because when I looked at the dictionary description of resurrect, is normally to biblical terms, which most people will say, but my definition for it is where it actually says resurrect is encapsulated within the definition, the act of causing something that had ended or been forgotten or lost to exist again, to be used again. And I actually feel that the vast majority of people get lost along the way. I certainly did. I ended up doing something that was giving me results in terms of achievement and this, that, and the other. But I never felt, as Adam said a little bit earlier, I never felt like I was actually really fulfilling what I was here to do. And it was only then, by a whole combination of things happening, that I got the opportunity to take the opportunity to actually turn things around. So I feel that what we've got to do is actually get back to what, as a child almost, we knew intuitively we should be doing, but we get distracted along the way and end up on a different railway track and thinking, how the hell am I actually going up this direction when I really inside know that I should be going there? So the mastery of self is that when we actually get back to understanding who and what it is we want, and then that's another whole journey, and perhaps that's the next book. So.
Yeah. I was just thinking as Martin was talking, if anyone has any feedback on this, please contact either of us on Facebook. My Facebook is Adam Young, and just you know, if you want to have your own say and we can read stuff out. Any questions, any however you want to add to the conversation and the subject, resurrect and reclaim the true you. Yeah. So,
what does that, Adam, mean to you when we talk about this subject? And quite often, Adam and I, we call ourselves the walking preachers. That's not that we're preaching to anybody else. We preach to each other. We walk. We walk the streets to actually just talk things through. You know, some people sit in a room and meditate. You have to find what actually works for you. What we've actually found works really well for us, actually working through the processes of things, is to actually just walk. So we got that freedom. We're out in the elements, but that really works. So for you, what has this whole thing meant to you?
Well, walking for a start, it helps me channel my subconscious. It frees my mind. I mean, Frank Zappa had a quote, the mind really only works, the mind's like a parachute. It only works if it's open.
Brilliant.
And
love it.
But I think that's a great quote, and it's true about anyone, really, having an open mind and channeling the subconscious, because it's so easy not to. And I think sometimes the best solutions come from when we're noticing the subconscious. And your question was, what does resurrect and reclaim the true you mean to me?
Yeah.
No one's ever used that phrase before. I was kind of skimming the surface about understanding my own life when I met Martin. But until he actually said those words, it really made sense to me, because I wasn't really, there was something missing in my life. It didn't seem to matter what I did and what I didn't do. I really didn't feel the emotional reward. And I guess it's because I was blocked up and cluttered with maybe a bad rule book.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it before doing this show. We sat in a coffee shop, and as normal, we tend to freewheel everything. So there is nothing scripted to what we're talking about. It probably sounds like that as well, but there's nothing scripted. But we were actually talking about a blueprint, and one of the things. So I now continually study. I hated school. It was the worst area for me at all. I now understand why it was the worst area, but for me at that time, so I wasn't interested in study at all. Now I study all the time, and I study a whole host of people. And the person I was actually listening to this morning, they talked about we actually create in our mind a blueprint of what our world should look like. And when the world doesn't look like that blueprint that we have in our mind, that's where dissatisfaction can start coming in. We can feel like we're completely off course because the world in front of us will not be in accord with the picture that we've created in our mind. Now, we've all heard about the phrase, images of the mind expressed. So, I suppose one of the things that sprung to my mind just then is that somebody who most of us would actually look at and actually say, my goodness, they're really slim and they look really healthy. But that person might actually look in the mirror as an anorexic person would do and not see a very slim, attractive person. They will actually see a very different vision. So a less extreme version of that is actually how we actually view the world. And because it doesn't actually fit in accordance with this created picture in our mind, we start to become dissatisfied with it. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we have to accept just what's on our plate, because that's where I come back to in the book about choice. If there is something that we're associating with, being around, we have the ability to change it. But we also have to be very, very, Adam and I met when we were both working in a church. And so we were actually helping people, also helping ourselves, but we were helping other people overcome various difficulties and whatever. But there was a time when both of us got to a point, not at the same time, but we came to a point where we actually thought, this isn't doing me any good anymore. And it was like there was a realization. I had it, and it was almost like, what? Because most of us, when we're doing something like that...
Yeah, I mean, it felt right at the time, but then as time went on, it was like Martin mentions in his book, his writings, that if you're feeling uncomfortable, it normally means you're not in the right place, and things have moved on, and you need to move on. And I think we've been on this journey together where we've been coaching each other and helping out each other decide where we should be. And Martin's had a slightly different career to me, but I even used the word force myself into management school. I was doing a management degree. And even though I like the idea of how things worked in the commercial world, I was very uncomfortable studying it because it went against all my emotions, I guess. And, I know the need for management, but I kind of wanted to do it my own way. I understood the importance, but I guess I didn't agree with what the textbooks were saying. I got it. I got the systems and the importance of the inner workings of an organisation and the outer workings of an organisation. I got it all, but it kind of took the emotions out of, took the emotions out of me really, and turned me into a bit of a square. Yeah. Like a lot of imagery in the past has been associated with bowler hats and suits, and and I kind of felt like a robot in a suit and a bowler hat, even though bowler hats hadn't been around for 30 years.
Well, they do in accordance with where you are, but that's another subject. But all of that is actually about, you can put an Armani suit on somebody, because it can still look really bad, because they don't suit what's inside. It's only when the suit on the outside and the suit on the inside actually fit that it actually looks like a unit. And really, that's what we're talking about, is that, in today's society, what most people are actually looking for external reward. And so, everyone wants a bigger car or a bigger house, or this is all very superficial, really, on the outside. But then, and we see it lots in the celebrity world, where all of a sudden they have all of this, then implodes. And the word is right, actually, it's an implosion. Because they reach a point where they realise that all of the stuff that they've actually got sat in the living room for every shot that they could ever get isn't giving them the happiness that they crave inside. And so what we're talking about, I mean, one of the people that I subscribe to, I really study a lot, is a guy called Sadhguru. And he actually works on something that he calls inner engineering. Now, for me, actually, what I feel it's all about is actually inner re-engineering. Because I think we know as a child what we'd love intuitively, instinctively. We know what we'd love to be doing, but we get diverted. And what we have to do is re-engineer ourselves to get back to actually feeling what we feel.
I remember meeting people, and I was insanely jealous, and I was trying to work out why I was insanely jealous of these people. And it was just because they seemed so peaceful and so relaxed in whatever situation, and I felt so unrelaxed in any situation. And I guess that's what I was jealous of, is even though I was in the same place as them physically, mentally I felt so far away from their inner peace. It made me feel awful because I wanted to be where they were, and I really feel as close as I can be to that peaceful person now, because I've had to remanufacture myself for my own peace of mind. And and that's all kind of came out of discussions I've had with Martin, and he's this authority in it, really, because it was him who planted that seed to go, that's what it was. It made me realise that I was so far away from the peaceful person I wanted to be.
But a lot of the time it's actually because we stop trusting our own intuition, because we're trying, like you said about you were trying to fit into the business world, and that business world was giving you a formulaic way of actually being. You wanted to be your own individual person, and what you're trying to do is almost like, the old definition of square peg round hole, or whatever way. You're trying to force something into a logical situation. And if you're an emotional being, which we are, it's kind of like, how the hell does that fit into a formula? And everybody on this earth, that's what I love about people. Everybody's different.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of business is interesting, because if I was to put my child hat on, it's a bit like swapping something. It's like sitting across the school classroom and going, okay, Martin's got he's got a red phone and I've got a blue phone. And really, actually, I want Martin's red phone and Martin wants my blue phone. And really, you have a little discussion of what information you want to keep and get off the phones and make the trade. And that's what business is to me, is a trade. But people seem to confuse business so much to the point where they're just causing mayhem for no reason.
Their business is their life. And that's where I used to be. When I was working in corporate land, that was my life. And it was what described me. So I was a sales director. I was a regional director. That defined me.
Yeah.
And it's then when somebody, and that's where the power comes from. And that's why we actually get caught. Because when we actually get caught into that is your definition of who you are. Because what happens when you meet most people? They go, what do you do then?
Well, you've just reminded me of something I'll tell you in a minute.
But that's true, isn't it? What do you do then? So what we're trying to do is actually classify everybody. So when you turn around like me and Adam do now and say, well, we're just bums on the street because we're just walking around, they don't know what the hell to do with you. Because we all want to classify and actually put them into a hierarchy.
I just see it as we're having a business meeting. But it's a fun, it's one without any bullshit.
Yeah. But, I mean, but that's because we are how we are.
Having fun at work.
Well, this is the thing. It's like this is great, because what we want to do is just share. And if somebody can actually just pick up one or two things from what we share over this hour, then that will be really brilliant.
And one thing I forgot, and maybe people forget, is you can actually have fun at work. It's okay. You don't have to pull a veil over everything and give it all a grey output. It's no good for anyone. You're going to give yourself a heart attack. And just to go back to something very, very funny, Martin, when you're talking about discussions with people, recall recently your mum passed away, and we're at her wake, and somebody said that to me, and I was sitting there with your friend Wally, who was, I guess he's my friend as well, even though I've only met him a few times, and Wally was there, and Wally and I think there's a bit of a cheeky chemistry between Wally and I, even though we don't really know each other. But someone looked at me and said, "What does Martin do?" And he said that to me, and Wally stepped in, pushed me aside, and said, "He used to be in corporate land, just like you." And the guy just went pink, and it just cut through all the bullshit of one-upmanship or whatever. It's just. But there's that mentality that I don't even know what it is. Do you know what it is? That.
Well, for me, it's about people pigeonholes things so that they can actually look at themselves and actually say, how do I relate to that? So where am I positioned in that? Because, you know, if your definition is, are you a millionaire? Yes, you are. Oh, I want to associate with you. No, I'm not. I don't want to associate with you. So they're trying to, this is my feeling, is that we're so used to. I mean, it doesn't happen, there has been a massive change in the media in terms of every article you ever used to read about somebody, they used to go, X, Y, and Z person, 45. They always put their age there. Now it's started to actually come away from it because we've got so much stuff going on in the world. Because again, what you're doing is not actually what their age is where are you against their age? Do you get that? So
Almost like
it's all about judgment.
Judgment, yeah.
It is a judgment, and judgment is one of the roots of evil. Because who is to judge that the way we live our life and the way that somebody else lives their life is wrong or right?
Yeah, I can only imagine that this guy was going through the same thing that I was going through. I used to be addicted to eating, smoking, you know.
Nothing's changed then, Adam.
No, not changed.
Yeah.
You know, the consumer world, which would be shopping, you know, always felt like I had to be spending money to make myself feel good. And it was really just blocking me up. And that attitude as well. Oh, what do you do? You know, it's like, it's kind of an illness.
But we don't recognise it as an illness. We're not actually taking that person as an individual. What we're trying to do is what, you know, the world tends to do. Are you a Remainer or are you a Leaver? Now, you know, I mean, obviously that's a thing going on in the UK at the moment. Are you a Remainer or a Leaver? Now, if you actually come up with anything outside of I am a Remainer or a Leaver, then people describe you as not actually being able to make up your mind. But for me, it's actually intelligence, because we can all see the reality of one side or the other. You might end up actually going on one side or the other, but it doesn't mean to say that you can't see a picture which actually encompasses both. And so all of this judgment is so, because that, again, if we come back to that blueprint thing we were talking about earlier, we have a judgment that we're making. We're creating a picture in front of us, and we're actually saying, right, I score 10 here, so I've achieved that. I score 2 here because I'm not achieving that whatsoever. But it's all in accordance with how we actually look at it. And so the first phase of any of this, and you said it earlier, Adam, is about whether you're conscious of something or unconscious. If we consciously know that we are causing a problem, So I always say to you, don't I, Adam, sometimes you just throw a grenade into the situation. Yeah. Now, if you were unconscious to that, you wouldn't know. You were just destructive in those things. But I know you consciously are aware that sometimes you'll just throw a funny into a conversation or something just to change how it's going.
I mean, I went to a HS2 convent. I don't know what it's going to call it, a meeting at a village hall in Wendover, and you know, rightly so, the locals were trying to have a civilized conversation with HS2 about, you know, the impact of whatever. And I was sitting there, I was a lot younger than everyone there. I was in my early 20s. And, well, late 20s, but still a lot younger than everyone there.
I was going to say, there's a little bit of delusion. I don't think that's been going on for 27 years.
Oh, thanks, Martin. Thanks, Dad. Only joking. Who's the grenade? So I was sitting there, and I saw the two sides. I put myself as ambivalent as I always do. Always have been, sitting on the fence. Don't know why. Maybe it's a control thing, but whatever. And I was sitting there, I was observing what was going on, and they were really trying to communicate with each other, both sides, and nobody was listening to each other. You know, obviously, whatever. You know, it's like a cartoon, really. You got HS2, and then you got the people, and I was sitting there. I want to say something because I don't think anyone's realised they're not even listening to each other. And I thought, they're not even going to listen to that. So I thought I'd say, I've got a proposal that we propose for the HS2 to be rerouted through Checkers.
You said that in the meeting?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And everyone laughed. And I just, because it was just so ridiculous, because I thought, well, if no one's listening, I can say whatever I want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people saw the funny side of that. And also I said something like, why don't we turn it into flats? Like, why don't we're going to have to turn Checkers into flats because they're not going to want to, no prime ministers want to be going to, and it literally goes past Checkers.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the planned route.
And so maybe Checkers is that bad that the prime minister doesn't really care. Must be more financial gain.
But so you know, this whole thing about judgment, yeah. But you know, there is an old phrase which is actually it's from a guy called Stephen Covey, and he said one of the principles of life is to seek first to understand and then be understood. Most people want to actually put their point of view, but why often I feel that people don't want to listen to other people is that they get so hardwired in their heads that they don't allow anybody else's perspective to go in because it might change their view.
Well, it's like you were saying, you tried to do change management, or you did do change management at a place you worked, and you said immediately people were like, oh no. But then they came round to the fact, and actually it ended up very good result, and you turned the company around and it went into really good profit. But it's illustrating what you were saying, that people don't like change.
But that's about the fluidity. You mentioned earlier when we were having a coffee that you can meet somebody who's supposed to be all-knowing but they're rigid in their views. You can meet somebody else who's far older, but they appear far younger. And that openness of mind, what was the Frank Zappa thing that you said about earlier? I thought that was brilliant. I'm going to use it. I'm going to write that on my pad.
Mine's like a parachute. It only works if it's open.
Brilliant. You know, and that, if if we actually can, if we want everlasting youth, that is the key. The key to everlasting youth is to actually have a continually open mind. Once we actually start becoming closed to the mind that we've got, it changes the whole aspect of where we're going. Because unfortunately, if we're not open to that parachute, then we can't allow anything fresh into our lives. Because really, youth is freshness. If you actually see somebody and they say, oh, they're in the full flush of youth, what does that mean? It's because they've got this thing emanating from themselves. But, you know, when I see somebody, an actress, for instance, like Helen Mirren, and she's in her 70s, but she looks absolutely amazing. And it's because she's got this youth bug about her. Joanna Lumley is another person, you know, so they're in their 70s, but they have this youthfulness about them because they're open to new experiences the whole time. Once we actually get blocked up, once the system gets blocked up and we try and defend our position all the time, then I feel that's where we can start having real problems.
I mean, I don't want to go off track too much, but
it wouldn't be you if we didn't go off track, Adam.
But why when I go on holiday, I have fun, then I come back, why can't I recreate the fun I have on holiday when I come back?
Why can't you recreate it?
Well, you know, you go on holiday, you do all this great stuff, you feel great, and I come home, I still feel great, but I'm not really tripping the life fantastic. You know, why do I have to spend money and go on holiday to feel great about myself? Well,
I mean, again, that's about patterns, isn't it? I think quite often. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine last night at dance, and we were talking about how some people have such a rigid pattern. You mentioned my mum earlier. I mean, love her. You know, I knew every Thursday morning she would be washing her hair. Whatever was occurring, Thursday morning was hair washing day. And some people have such rigid patterns that they're actually working to all of the time. Now, again, if you have this fluidity about you, now it doesn't mean to say that you've got to live in total chaos, but when you're away on holiday like that, you're actually not living within those regimes or patterns. But we also need some patterns to actually allow us to function. But it's recognizing, and again, that, you know, for me, a lot of the word is whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. If you're walking along like a robot and actually, okay, so every day I get up at this time and then I do that and then I do that and then I do that, then I do that. That's a robotic way of living. But when you go away on holiday, you have this kind of like, well, I'm free. I'm not having to fit into this pattern. Now, I know it's not easy when you've got like a full-time job. But likewise, what you have to do is actually see what impact that's having on you. Because other people cannot operate, and it doesn't mean to say that it's wrong, but other people cannot operate without a really fixed regime of what they're doing.
I mean, something that scared me. Yeah, it scared me. I've got to be careful what I say now, but you know that imagery of a crooked accountant, that the reason why their back is so crooked is because they're always bent over counting their, like a miser. Yeah,
like Ebenezer Scrooge kind of thing.
Yeah,
and counting his money.
And I felt like I was going that way, you know, like, and I still notice when I'm counting my pennies of being miserly, because I even feel that crooked person, you know, over my books, kind of going, oh. And it's so easy to get into that stress of, I don't know, was it control, obsessed control, and kind of sucks the life out of you.
Well, a lot of, I mean, the basic human being's requirement is to survive. And so all of those things, you know, money. So why do people freak out when they're told? The majority of people freak out when they're told they're going to be made redundant.
Oh, that sounds great.
Well, I sack myself 10 times a day. But no, I don't listen. But, you know, because all they can see is like a skittle effect. Well, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do... The stress is unbelievable. Now, it used to be like a black mark against people if they'd been made redundant. You can't say that. Now, if you haven't been made redundant, you haven't been living, really.
It's like divorce, isn't it? You know, you get pigeonholed as, oh, yeah, divorced. Or you feel like you should feel bad because you get a divorce.
Well...
I don't think that matters.
Well...
It's because it's about how you're feeling yourself and, you know... Yeah, other people exist in the world, but if you're being bent out of shape, and I got that phrase from you, Martin, I call that a Martinism, but if you're getting bent out of shape, you kind of got a choice of keep bending yourself out of shape. You know, the world's pretty messed up, and the only thing we can really do, we can't change the world, but what we can do is change how we respond to the world. And yeah, I'll read the news if I have to, but my God, it's like I feel like a human punch bag every time I read it. So I've got to be in a good place. And you know, it can so easy to get addicted to the news. You know, the misery, the chemicals that you get from misery. So easy, and I'm sure millions of people are addicted to misery and they don't even realise you know, the chemicals addicted to that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Linked to that.
Well, I mean, you know, it's precisely, again, I was having that conversation with somebody last night because you know, I think if we set the news channels a challenge of the only thing that you can report today is good news, they would struggle. They would really struggle because they know that bad news sells. Yeah. You know, we were talking about that terrible air crash the other day, you know, and how that actually is, obviously the 170 people on board or whatever the number was, but also the ramifications of that in terms of all of their family and all of their associates, how that actually impacts out. But what is a strange thing? I wonder how many people after that who were getting on a flight the next day cancelled their ticket because we never think it's going to happen to us. Because if we did, we wouldn't do anything, would we?
No.
We wouldn't do anything.
No, and sorry if I think maybe going off subject a bit, but I mean, it's always just listening to people who get these things generated. But there's a lot of people in the world that are addicted to misery and want you down at their level.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm guessing these people don't even know how miserable they are.
Well, there's that song, isn't there? Misery likes company. I like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does, you know, it's kind of like, but, you know, it's that they're just mixing up a concoction of rubbish. They get addicted to the smell of it, and that's where they stay. But it's really going back to the little description we were making earlier about why we got to a stage when we were working in the church. I don't want to do this anymore, because I knew when I reached that stage, I knew what it was doing was pulling me into an environment that wasn't giving me any juice anymore. So as soon as you recognise that, but for a period of time, I did that role for 3 years. For that period of time, that was fine. But then it reached a point. Now, most people are looking at what they call consistency.
Yeah.
And they want to know, oh, Adam's like this and Martin's like that. And again, we're trying to classify and put people in pigeonholes. But life doesn't work like that. That's why we talk about relationships. Relationships can be beautiful. And they might last a day, a week, an eternity. But you cannot define how long that relationship will work for. Because, again, it's it's like, trying to fit a model.
Mm.
And when the model is broken, then, I dance, so that's my thing. And I think almost 90% of people who actually go out dancing have been divorced.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that we're all, I was out last night and I actually danced with goodness knows how many people over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I come home with any of them? No, because we were just dancing together. Because that magic that exists between two people is a relatively rare thing. Yeah. And that connection. And, people might think, oh, yeah, they're in a dance hall, it's all going to happen and this, that and the other. And all we hear is the rubbish about Strictly Come Dancing and things like that. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Now, yes, there are closeness and there is connection. But what I'm trying to say is that people are trying again to actually say, why hasn't my relationship worked? And all we can do, if we do have a broken relationship, is look at what happened in that, what didn't work, and then say, all right, what did I learn from this? And then move on and smile about it. But lots of people get stuck.
Yeah, and
they get stuck in that event.
Can't change direction. Haven't got that awakening.
No.
I mean, between us, Martin, like most people on this planet, we've been through stuff, and we're kind of like we've kind of mastered, the mastery of ourselves. What's that phrase you use?
It is the mastery itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if you, I'm trying to find the words, but if someone's to come to you and say, I'm really not happy, I want to make a change. If you were to say one thing to get the ball rolling of mastery yourself, what could you say to somebody? Or where do you think they should start?
Brilliant. Yeah, it's great. The first point is actually, if they're asking that question, they've already started. Because they're asking a question. They're actually saying, I don't feel inside as happy as I should do. So how am I going to change that? So actually they've already started. So that is the first point. Because some people never ever get there. I think the vast majority of people never really ask themselves that question.
They don't even know that they're depressed.
No. So so that would be that's the.
They
first
love it.
point.
They revel in depression. Oh, I love it. Oh.
Well, actually, it's about again associations. When you think of 76% of the drugs that are given out in the NHS are actually antidepressants linked, then it's kind of like, right, so that must be normality. No, really for me, it's normality that most people are not living the lives that they should be. And that's what we're talking about in this whole thing about resurrecting yourself, is actually getting back to live the life that you should be. But to answer your question, where should they start? I feel that there is two elements. One is what I call the volcano of past. And I think in that volcano gets stored all of our experiences. And that is rumbling away like a normal volcano does on a day-to-day basis. And it's got perhaps a little bit of smoke coming out the top of it. But then at some point along the continuum of time, it explodes. The top comes off it. Yeah, so they might not be expressing it in that kind of way, but the top comes off it. And what we have to do is see that as being brilliant. It's brilliant that we're asking ourselves a question that has been inside what I call the budgie cage. Most people are trying to actually shut the budgie up. So what they do, they throw a towel over the top of it. So it stops for a little while, but the poor little budgie is still inside actually going, I'm not living right. I'm not living right. I'm not living right. But you can't hear it because the towel's on there.
Yeah.
So the first thing is actually that inside of us are all of these stored memories. Then what we got to do is actually look at what is the key thing? So if we actually say that we've had 5,000 experiences, I'm just using a figure off the top of my head, and you think, right, I've got to sort all of those out. It's like, never. You're never going to do it. It's an onerous thing. I actually believe that most people have 3, 2, or even 1 core foundational rock that everything else emanates off. And that's the thing that we've got to go and look for to actually clear up.
What would you say your core foundational rock is?
Well, my one was the relationship I had with my dad.
Okay.
So I was always trying to repair that. I was always trying to make it be the blueprint that I wanted. And now what's really amazing is that even though I never achieved that in all the years that he was alive, actually, the reason I now feel that that actually happened was because it made me go off in search of answers. It made me go off in search of how can I actually change this? So now, in the craziest way, I see it that really assisted me to be where I am today. Now, there's a lot of things. I mean, you know, obviously I've been in selling for a long, long time. Yeah. And one of the things we used to call is spin. Now we associate spin with politics.
Yeah, I like that word.
Yeah. So it could be that you can say, oh, Martin, you're just spinning that to make it look much better. Well, you know what? I don't care. Because if I feel better about it, yeah, by actually turning it around and transforming how I actually see that relationship that was so impactful on me, I don't care what you want to define it as. For me, I'm actually much healthier now because I can actually see a different way. And it's helped me resurrect who I am. Before, what it did, it sucked all of my energy. That's why I never got on at school, because my inner confidence was destroyed. And that's what I had to do, was rebuild my wall of self-esteem, as I call it, to allow me to do what I now do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that sound a big project, though? If I said, oh, you've got to go and look for your inner demon.
Or just one.
Well, you see, what I feel is that the mind stores everything. Now, people actually say to us, don't they, oh, just forget about it. When we actually realise that we never are going to, then we've got problems on our hands. Because if you can't forget something, and all of the time we try and say, forget about it, all it actually does, it makes it bigger. It makes the problem bigger because we're trying to say we forget about it, but it's never going to go away because the brain stores everything. So if the brain stores everything, it means that we're never going to forget it. So what we have to do is actually learn to actually understand that experience, befriend it, and then smile at it and move on. But that's a massive thing because most people are saying, no, I want to forget about that. I want to forget. That didn't happen to me. But it did. It happened. It's part of your blueprint. But it's actually how we befriend it is going to be your future health, as I see it. Your future mental health is actually how you deal with your past.
Yeah. Yeah.
That stopped you in your tracks, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Why is that?
Well, as you're talking, it's really rare for me, but as you're talking, I'm listening and I'm thinking about what to say next, and then you say something else, and this time I didn't have anything to say because I'm listening.
That's all right. But that's how things operate in this kind of thing. Is that, you know, we've been speaking here for 49 minutes almost, and it seems like a second.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing things that you love, you see, the other thing that I would actually put with that person that you asked me about was that you got to go and look at the big inhibitor that is actually holding you back. but you've also got to go and look at the things that you love. And then you look at the distance between where the things you love to do are and where you're currently living.
Yeah.
Because that's the gap. That's the, you know, we talk about Dharma and things like that. Now, so if you love being spontaneous, but you're trying to live within a world which is really rigid, ain't going to work.
No.
You're always going to have this underlying thing that actually says to you,
Yeah.
we've got a problem here. Yeah? Because if you love to be spontaneous, if you love to be rigid, and you're trying to live within a creative environment, that's not going to work for you either. So how far are you bending yourself out of shape from the things that you love to do? But again, what happens is that over time, over life, all of those things that we love to do, quite often, like the old budgie, they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, but they're still inside. They're still there. What do you love to do? Most people can't answer you that question. What do you love to do, Adam? And keep it clean, for goodness sake.
I like to play music.
And you're brilliant at it.
Thank you. I like to go walking. I like to write. Basically, all my creativity revolves around the name balancing. And what is balancing? It's a way of me understanding what the world is. It's like my own notes, really.
But you basically, if I was to describe you, you're a creative.
Yeah.
Yes? You're a creative.
Yeah.
So, can you now really understand why business school didn't work for you?
Yeah, I'm on the opposite end of the scale. I'm in the wrong place, wasn't I?
You're in the wrong place. So again,
I write about business, but I don't feel comfortable studying textbooks on it.
No. Because it's too formulaic. And if we're creatives, then that formulaic world, but if you actually look at
it's
the
stressful, man.
Yeah.
I just think this is fucking stressful.
Yeah.
About the swearing.
Yeah, but I mean, business shouldn't be stressful. It's actually because people are mostly, if I recall my time in corporate land, you know, you mentioned earlier about turning a business around, putting it back into profitability, right? So that was the line I was given by the corporate. Turn it around, Martin. We get it. I then go and get 200 people in that business, all pointed in the same direction, all, you know, saying, yeah, we can do this. And as soon as we did it, they sold the business because their only intent was profit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you can say, well, that's the way of the world. But for me, you see, because I'm a creative and because I'm a sensitive soul, that has always hurt me.
Yeah.
Because I can't actually be saying to people, this is the way to go, knowing behind the scenes you're being sold. It's like a Bond film. You know, most Bond villains in a Bond film actually have like a corporate company. They'll have a charity, but in the background, they're trying to nick your water.
Do you think you can be a businessman and have a soul? Or do you have to be soulless? I'm trying to work that out myself.
I'm sure it is achievable. I think as something grows, though, it's much harder to actually, replicate it. That's the word I was looking for. You know, so as soon as you get other people involved, what they do is then start to paint their own picture on the whole situation. And all of a sudden, you know, that business I was working for, the actual top honcho, was a great guy.
Oh, right.
He was a great guy.
Well, that's what we want, isn't it? We want a nice boss.
But some of the people lower down from him were complete and utter. You know, I wouldn't let them, paint the underneath of my shoes.
Yeah.
Because of their values. So his values seem to be in accord with mine, actually. But actually dealing with all of the things, the egos, the whatever in between.
Yeah. I mean, what I want to know is why are there so many scumbags in the world?
Well,
that ruin it for everyone else.
You said it earlier, Adam. We cannot change the whole world.
Oh, right.
All we can do is change ourselves. And if we replicate that, then the world will change.
Yeah,
you see, we're always wanting the outside world to change, and then we'll change. And that cannot work like that.
I'm sure that you know, any job, I think you can, I'm pretty convinced you could take any job, whatever it is, and secretly be having a party doing it.
Absolutely.
I don't think it matters if you're, whatever job you got, it's still the nature of work. You know, it can quite easily take yourself away from yourself.
Yeah.
And I believe you can truly enjoy any job, and that's any job.
As long, though, Adam, is that it's the right job for you. Because if you're not in the right place, so I've got a friend of mine who works in a care home for elderly people.
Yeah.
What a character she is. And these people all love her. Yeah? Yeah. Because of the type of person she is. She can deal with it. She can actually deal with the fact that they pass on. They're not all there. But her intent is to actually make their lives as best as she possibly can whilst they're here.
And that's a kind of analogy for across the board, is for any human, is we all want the best quality of life.
Yeah. But
we can.
If you ask me about doing her job, right, I wouldn't want to do it in a million years. It's not where I'm supposed to be. And that really, if we actually talk about resurrecting and getting back to being the true you, what you got to do is go back and look at, right, what are my natural gifts? Yeah. What do I truly love to do? And do that. Yeah. So even though I can look at my friend and actually see that she does an amazing job and that she's working in the right domain for her, it doesn't mean to say that it's the right domain for me. That is not my domain. You know, some people want to work inside all the time. I cannot stand it. So I have to have freedom. So that doesn't mean to say somebody working inside is wrong. It just means it's wrong for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're doing this, is because I've turned my life around.
You have, definitely.
And
you've done that on your own, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, your book is available on Amazon. Resurrect to Reclaim the True You. But really, Martin, you know, without no, it's all based on that subject. Yeah. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without
But every one of us, Adam, every one of us need a helping hand. Because that's all it is. All my book is an expression of stuff that I've gone through and stories that I've gathered over time.
And I think some self-help books, you know, I don't want to speak for all of them, only skim the surface. And, you know, yeah, I am your friend, and maybe I'm biased, but...
And I'm also paying you a fortune.
Are you? Oh, great. You never told me that.
Well, we've got a monopoly board over here, so
but I think the point is, if not saying your book, but I'm saying if something is that great and makes you feel that good, that you should just do more of it.
But it's about there is an old thing. No one can actually take you places. All I can do is point the way. Yeah? because it's up to the individual. It don't matter. You know, your book can be the most brilliant. So some people will pick up my book and go, that is amazing. Other people will say, what a load of hogwash, because of their own views, which is absolutely fine. And that's what you have to accept.
I mean, people that joke, oh, your book, his book, his book. Yeah, missing the point. And maybe, you know, people are just too black and white. They're just...
Yeah, but again, it's, you know, it's the individual. But unless the individual has the get up and go, the desire to actually turn things around, it doesn't matter how good anybody's book is. If they are not willing to actually put in the work, the sacrifice, and the determination, it ain't going to happen.
You got to be ready.
You've got to be ready, yeah. And I think on that note, Adam, I think we need to put these poor people out of their misery.
Yeah, sure. And I need a book to get me ready for your book.
Okay. Well, I'll book that. So I'll come back to you in 3 years' time. Thanks, Adam.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're calling it a day.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate.